All right, we are going to make a start. I'd just like to thank you guys for coming into the catch-up tutorial. For this evening, I will record it. Usually, we are now encouraging that we will not be recording the sessions because it's really important that our students hop online and engage with us. So thank you guys for coming on tonight with the change of schedule. So we'll have this module now, module 5 tutorial tonight, and then I'll see you again on Thursday for our last module. This one tonight is about learning environments and behavior support. So creating a quality environment for teaching and learning in practice. So we'll make a start, and before we jump into this module learning, I'll actually just go through just a few little things in regards to, I know a few people have mentioned that they missed the workshops. And I was just explaining that the workshops are really, really vital and crucial to your success in this unit. How it works is the tutorials sit alongside the workshops. The tutorials do kind of like the side piece, which gives you the theory, the teaching and learning that can build more depth within your assignments. But the workshops are the ones that will go really into that assignment support. So if you haven't attended those workshops, try and get into one this week and make sure you watch the recordings as well. So we'll make a start. Thank you. Acknowledgement of country. We begin our conversations today by acknowledging that we are meeting on ancestral land, on Aboriginal land. We pay respects to elders past, present, emerging, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. A quick reminder that it's not next week's tutorial, but this Thursday. So the assignment, as you guys are aware, A2 is due on Friday. If you can bring along any work you've done, your draft of your lesson plan for assignment 2 into our tutorial, we'll be sharing our feedback for one another. So that'd be really beneficial that you bring it along and we can share our screens. A reminder that it is 2 parts, this assessment. So there's your lesson plan, 1,000 words, and then there's the 8-minute PowerPoint presentation. So the links are there. You can access this PowerPoint slides through Blackboard. So there's a few little videos on how to record in PowerPoint. And yeah, so I just want to quickly jump into our assignment brief. Hopefully that pops up for you. Yep, great. All right. So just a reminder that if you have not made the workshops, the feedback coming back from assessment 1, you need to make sure. So we've got the assessment brief. So jump into assessments. We're down into assessment 2. So there is the assessment brief and rubric. So once again, I'm just going to touch on this. This is not the focus for our tutorial. If you've just jumped online, welcome. A reminder that the workshops assist you with the requirements for the assessment. In the assessment folder, you will find assessment 2 brief and rubric. And I think this caught some people out before. So with the brief, it's providing you the full overview. So it's got everything that you need to know, the weight of the assignment, the due date. It's got the task overview, which it's clearly highlighted there. So you've got 2 parts, part A and part B. So 1,000 word lesson plan, and then you've got the 8-minute video. Parts of this are very in-depth to help you succeed in regards to whether you're passing or you're up into the high distinctions. However, it's really important you're not just following the brief. You need to make sure that you go all the way down. So the resources are there. If you haven't had a look, there's the lesson plan template, There's even samples of a primary or secondary lesson plan. If you keep going down, down, you need to self-assess yourself with the assessment rubric. I cannot stress that enough, because when I was looking through it, it shows you what the weighted of each criteria is. And this was really highlighted with our assessment one, is some people got caught off guard with certain things that were in the rubric. Yeah, really important. Identify and analyze learner development and teaching strategies, criteria 2. Plan a lesson plan using explicit teaching, literacy and numeracy integration. So if you haven't attended those workshops, you're really thinking, okay, so even if you've picked, because remember, the assessment is just a hypothetical, you're picking a lesson. And remember, less is more. So you've picked a lesson scenario, even if it's science or if it's humanities, whatever it may be, business, how in that criteria there, when you're self-assessing yourself on the marking rubric, how are you making sure that you're integrating general capabilities, Australian curriculum, general capabilities, literacy and numeracy? Scrolling down, I found one that was really interesting that I think could catch people off guard if they are just following the brief. So analyze classroom structures that promote positive behavior. Yes, we're going to go into that tonight. Assessment and feedback, evaluate assessment practices and feedback strategies. We did that last tutorial. That's particularly around your formative. I think this one's an important one. One that particularly if you just fill out the lesson plan and you haven't critically thought about how you're going to demonstrate this, reflect on intercultural development and ongoing professional reflexivity. So that one there is one that how are you thinking how you're going to integrate that into not only your lesson plan, but then, of course, importantly, in your voiceover as well. And then the last criterion there in the rubric is communicate observations clearly, appropriately using APA referencing. So that's one you're definitely going to hopefully hit. So I just wanted to really highlight that when you've done, go and self-assess yourself. You have those skills to look at the rubric and go, have I actually hit this? Because as many of you know, with assessment one, there was a lot of great submissions, but I think a few people went, oh, that was in the rubric and I looked at the brief, but I didn't actually jump into the rubric. I just want to also, there was, when we go here into assessment 2, see on the left-hand side here, I'm in the contents assessment 2, and then I'm going to assessment 2. If you click examples, if you haven't done this, open up sample A2 examples. There's actually 3 YouTube links there, and they're showing you the video presentation with the voiceover. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. There's examples, and our unit assessor has put them up. They, of course, are quality examples, things to strive towards. But remember, yours can be different as long as you are hitting the rubric. So don't take that for the be or end all, but I do encourage you. There's 3 YouTubes. I've looked at all 3 of them, and it just shows you how to really intertwine your lesson planning with your voiceover. And the voiceover is not just reading your lesson plan. You're tying in your theories. And as mentioned in the workshops, there's an exact outline as to what you should be addressing in your voiceover. So yeah, if you've just jumped on tonight with us, thank you for joining us. Sorry for the change of schedule. I was just reiterating that in the tutorials, we're not looking exactly at the assessment 2 in regards to the requirements. That has been highlighted in the workshops. But I was just going through a quick reminder of the rubric and the assessment brief. So use Blackboard. It's in there. You just need to have a look around at what's there because Robin, our unit assessor, has worked very hard in order to provide exemplars and everything that you do need. So let's jump back into our slides. So just a few last ones. These are from the workshop. So thank you for your patience if you did attend the workshop. I just wanted to highlight that for this evening's tutorial, we will be looking in particular. So we're going more into depth into which will impact or provide you with more information, deeper understanding around classroom management, which is this part of your lesson plan here. And as we go through, we're also looking at a range of differentiation strategies in this tutorial tonight. So that's this part of your lesson plan as well. You can refer back to these slides. They are on Blackboard. I've just popped these two slides in once again, just to support you further. This is from the workshop slides. So for the part 2, which is the video presentation, once again, I encourage you highly to watch those 3 exemplars just to get a feel for exactly what the presentation should be, what you should be including in your verbal justification. So, and that's exactly what it is. It's a justification of your pedagogy. So you've done your lesson plan and you are explaining with a theoretical background and a pedagogical model background as to why you're making these choices that you're making. You just haven't plucked them from anywhere. This is what a lesson will. You've got a justification. And like I said in the workshop, they've gone into in detail exactly what the presentation and how it should look. So there's the different things that you should be addressing. And they've assisted it in 4 main parts. So once again, I'm not going to go into depth with that, especially because I know a lot of you have attended the workshops, but I just wanted to put it there to remind you, go back if you haven't. So like I said, today for our tutorial, we are linking in with classroom management and how that feeds in well within our curriculum, as well as differentiation. So as you're jotting down notes and thinking of these things that support our delivery of lessons, you're also thinking, okay, well, we know that we are in the professional practice space for our APSTs, and we are in 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. And this is always one that comes up with pre-service teachers, graduate teachers, beginning teachers, and then even our experienced teachers. So supporting student participation and identifying strategies to support an inclusive participation and engagement, manage classroom activities, as well as managing challenging behaviour. And there's a lot of supports put in place. So just jump on the chat and list a few words for me in regards to the learning environment that you aspire to. So when we think about classroom management, what are we thinking? What are we hearing? What are we saying? What are we doing? What is it about our learning environment that we would like to create for our classroom? Pop it in chat. I'll pop a few. What is it that you want to have or aspire to within your classroom? So I've just put there calm but collaborative. I don't necessarily think that a quiet classroom is something that I aspire to, because I want my students to be collaborative. And in order to be collaborative, we need to think, pair, share, we need to chat, we need to explore. Pop some things in the chat that you want to have represented in your classroom. Cultural. Thanks, Priyanka. Yep, making sure that we are being inclusive of all, but also challenging students too. Some students, depending on their exposure and their experience from their home life, is very different to the next person they're sitting next to. So having a culturally aware class and building that positive environment, that's a good one. Surely there's a few more that we could have. What would you like in your classroom? I know a big one lately within the schools is this one. I've just popped another one in the chat. So alongside a lot of people, you'll get a lot of teachers, a lot of colleagues, oh, I'm managing this behavior, got this challenging behavior. But on the side there, the school is working maybe very hard with the social emotional program so that not only, yeah, thanks, Priyanka, safety. We want our classrooms to be safe. And there's all different things that we can pull from that. And yeah, that's linked in with mine really well is yeah, this that social emotional, it's not just students self-regulating, but also that they can, be kind to one another or grateful or empathetic. Because some of our students do have some heightened behavior. But how is our classroom environment supporting that? And it comes into a curriculum space as well. Maybe that student is actually kicking off because the learning wall or our modeled, our I do, our gradual release, maybe it wasn't there and it didn't target their need. So they don't know what they're doing. They've got confusion. So, yeah, lots of different things that we'd like to see in our learning environment. And lots of different ways. Every teacher's different. Thank you for those that contributed to the chat. Thanks, Rinku. So we've got respectful, structured, student-centered, engaging, and building on high expectations. Yes, high expectations is huge, isn't it? It's knowing that, we started here at the start of the year at term one and look at us as a class, whether it's high expectations as collaborative team members in our class, as supportive, as learners, and we're achieving A's and B's, or is it just that we are actually all able to learn together, depending on your class dynamic? So there's that as well. Like, is there high expectations in every aspect? Or is it one thing that we're working on as a class, particularly if we do have challenging behaviors and we're managing behaviors in a certain way? So thank you for that contribution as well. All right, I'm going to pop this link in the chat. And if you can watch this one on your own devices. And then it's 5 minutes. So this one is all about, let me just bring it up, sorry. How yeah, we can differentiate to achieve the best out of our performance. So there's a link there. I've just popped it in the chat. Let's take 5 minutes. If there's a few of you jumped on tonight, yeah, my sound seems to lag for everyone. So it's best you watch it yourself. We'll have 5 minutes and then we'll come back and have a chat. Brilliant. I just had a few little thumbs up there from some people letting me know they're done. Just pop your thoughts in the chat. I jotted down quite a bit there. I always have two sides of my thought processes, but I'd love to hear yours and whether you agree with this differentiation, whether it's something, we always take different strategies. I know many of you are in the high school as well. So you're thinking, how can this tailor to me in the high school setting, in the secondary setting? I'm going to jot a few thoughts and provocations in the chat, but jot down one or two things that you took away from that video in regards to differentiation and thinking about that inclusion lens. I've just popped a few thoughts there from watching. So, meeting the needs of a range of our learners. I think it's really important how she mentioned that they split off into rotations or stations or grouping as we know it. And this is one form of differentiation. It is something, as the slide says, that you can add into your toolbox of strategies. Not saying that it's the way to teach every single day, but it's something that you might see out on your placement as well. A really important part of this, and one that we've talked about in terms of pedagogical models, is how she mentioned that they start as a whole class. That's really important to set the session up, whether they do the rotations for 10, 15, 20 minutes, all depending on the dynamic of the class and the outcome that they're seeking. If you do not set up with the whole class altogether, having those learning intention and success criteria is made very clear to all the students might be omitted. So it's really important that if this is something you're thinking of, particularly going into placement or putting in your lesson plan for assessment too, being really clear and targeted and purposeful in regards to when you would have your gradual release, what it would look like. Something I noticed as well is in that video, there's quite a few adults. There was nearly one adult at each table. And the reality is, in many of our classrooms, particularly in your classrooms, as I know many of you are in the high school, it's just going to be you. And it doesn't mean just because they're in the high school, the students are older, that they're more capable. You still have a range of needs that you need to be met in regards to inclusivity and how you're going to meet those needs. One thing I did particularly like is that the teacher was targeting when they were with her the actual verbal, the verbal ability to for students to share their knowledge. Great example for your assessment too in regards to, okay, if you have a teacher station and it's targeting the literacy demands of general capabilities. So you're hitting not only general capabilities, but you've also got your social emotional targeting there. So it's a bit of both. So you still, if those students cannot write, perhaps they're using the laptops or the iPads with voice to text, but then when they're coming to you as teacher, you're also hitting those literacy integration as well. So that's that one. Another thing that I took away, which I think is really important, and one that I actually challenge. So I always, this is our whole, being in tertiary education, being at university, you should challenge things as well, because it's not always, you don't always have to do these things. So in the video, it did mention, if the students get the learning done, they could do some more learning. But I really want you to think about that concept, because sometimes it's not quantity. It's not like, oh, you've done it, let's do more and more and more. It's actually the quality of learning. So just remember that as you're thinking about the intentionality, the purposefulness of your targeted outcome. So is the learning intention, and in regards to the success criteria, if they've met the learning intention, is the success criteria just because they do more, like writing more sentences or doing more algebra or showing you more scientific experiments and doing more, is that actually hitting their success criteria and bumping up into those high expectations? So I just like to challenge that idea a little bit. Okay, so quantity over quality. We want to see the quality and the outcome of their work. Yeah, and that higher order thinking. So as you're thinking about your lesson planning, like Bloom's taxonomy, are they at that surface level thinking, or are they in that deep understanding? And deep understanding doesn't mean doing a task again. Depends. You can challenge that with the cognitive load theory. And that's another one I was going to mention about the video there. Was I did like that she mentioned that I don't make these children write because it's too confusing for them. So you're thinking in regards to what we know with our professional knowledge, is that's cognitive load theory. Like, how much are we weighing on the students and differentiating that? Okay, so why is inclusion important? This is a big one. It's policy. I'll put it straight out there. Bang on. It is policy. It is every student's right. So students have a variety of interests, needs, abilities, backgrounds, and learning preferences. And in regard to NESA, it's committed to ensuring curriculum is inclusive of all students, regardless of their disability, ethnicity, cultural background, socioeconomic status, nationality, language, gender, sexual orientation, or beliefs. So, and it's in the New South Wales syllabus, but in our WA as well as across the nation. You are doing a disservice if you are not meeting the needs of the student. And it doesn't mean that it's your job solely. You've got support staff, you've got head of special education, you've got leadership staff. It is a whole school. It is a whole school responsibility, but it is imperative, because it is not only within our curriculum and what is regulated of us, it's also in our code of conduct. So ACARA is committed to the development of high quality curriculum for all students, which promotes excellence and equity. All students are entitled to rigorous, relevant, and engaging learning programs drawn from a challenging curriculum that addresses the individual learning needs. It sounds lovely, doesn't it? But it sounds so easy, but it's not at all. And it's so important that we have supports in place, and that when you're out on placement, ask your mentor teacher, hey, I've noticed this child's doing a different learning task. Are they on an individual curriculum plan, or is that your differentiation? How is it meeting the year level expectations? So critical thinking is a good thing, and I encourage it as much as you can. And you can do it in a polite way when you're out on placement, and when you're in your career as well. But it is, the Australian curriculum recognises that the needs of all students encompass cognitive, affective, physical, social, and aesthetic curriculum experiences. So making sure that it's engaging, but it meets their level of need. And a really important part of that, and that comes from our tutorial last week, is how do you know? Are you doing your formative assessment? Are you doing your check-ins regularly? Every session, every part of the session, so you have that evidence to go, oh, yeah, we're getting where we need to go, we're progressing, or the student's not understanding. And why is that? It's okay. You deliver a lesson, you graduate release, you do your lesson. It's okay if a student doesn't get it, or two students, or four. Do you have the evidence? What are we going to do about it? That's what you need, these critical thinking skills. So differentiation is maximizing opportunities for all learners to promote student understanding at different levels within the same teaching concept or topic. Doesn't always have to be grouping, just remember that, but it's different levels of the same teaching concept. It's not as hard as you think. Differentiating instruction, it's not as hard as you think. You know what? I agree with that. It really isn't as hard as you think. Sometimes, particularly in our first few years of teaching, we're doing lots of stations, lots of rotations, going like this. But as you begin to observe your mentors in placement, you'll notice, yeah, that whole class teaching comes first. And particularly within the past, 5-10 years, if we're not getting that explicit instruction correct, if we're not with fidelity, making sure that we have explicitly taught it and modeled it with a range of visuals, then no matter how many groups you go into, how many stations you plan for, then have that explicit instruction, then they're not going to pick it up. So yeah, it's not as hard as you think. It's just a different way to go about it, different pedagogy. So let's jump into this next video. I will send you the link. So this one is just 4 minutes. Just pop the link in the chat. We will come back and have a quick chat about it. When you're finished, just pop in the chat if you have something to share about the video and about differentiation. And if this maybe challenges your thoughts with the last video. We'll see you soon. Okay, I'm back. I'm sure very shortly you will be back too. I much prefer that video, knowing that many of you are in the high school space, but as well as what I just mentioned about the previous video is it's not always one way to do differentiation. And I think that one in particular highlights exactly that. If you're planning for every single student in regards to a different plan, as it mentioned in the video, that's insanity. I really like the links to Tomlinson. Really great theorist and one that you could definitely embed within your A2 to justify your choices that you pop in with your differentiation within that lesson planning. So yeah, if you've got some thoughts about that video, pop it in the chat. We've just had one there. Student engagement should be the aim. Follow the learning process. Objective and outcome is more important than it is achieved. And differentiation in any way should aim at success. Thank you for that contribution, Rinku. It's exactly, yeah, I agree. It's student engagement, and like it was mentioned in the video, is it really we take importance in our lesson planning, importance in differentiation. But if you're finding that you're getting pulled with all these different rotations of things like that you're planning for, differentiation is more about a way of thinking, as mentioned. And a really important one is that class culture, which was mentioned in the video. So, mixed abilities, which was mentioned, and it wasn't mentioned in the previous learning. It can be very powerful. You have to be a little bit mindful when you go mixed abilities. Usually you don't want to go like you're really high achieving student with your developing student. You kind of want to go like your developing student with like at level or a little bit at level, but not too high. And then you could put your at level with your very high students so that there's not that huge jump in terms of peer scaffolding. It also, with the mixed abilities, it's such an important thing because you're targeting, once again, like the general capabilities of the social collaboration. With your theory, you've got your peer-to-peer scaffolding. And then you've also got, and what Rinku was saying as well, it's that process. So with that theory of Tomlinson, like what is differentiation? You've got those three different aspects. So whether it's the content and you're providing them with that access to change the content, depending on what it is, the process or the product. And the product is one many of us jump to. Okay, guys, we're going to do this. Would you like to present it as a PowerPoint presentation? Would you like to verbally present it, record your voice, make a poster? What are you going to do? But the success criteria is this. So differentiation in that regard, that video for me personally, and thank you to those that contributed in the chat. Yeah, it's a very strong point for your class. Okay, let's look into our next one. So we've just got a case study here, and I really like your thoughts on this. So I'll just read it out. So this is one, Tina is an 11-year-old student on the autism spectrum. She's bright and expressive when speaking, but she avoids written work. When asked to write with a pen or pencil, she becomes tense, fidgets, or stops working altogether. And when her teacher asks why, Tina explains the pen feels funny. I don't like how it feels on paper. Her teacher recognizes the issue isn't refusal and it's sensory discomfort. Hey, this is an interesting one. because we did this one in regards to one of our first tutorials, tutorial 1 or 2. But we weren't looking at our differentiation side of it. We were looking at more of a how do you include the families in regards to figuring out what's wrong. I'm going to leave that one because we have addressed it before, but I want you to think about just very quickly. We won't go into all these things. What would you ask the families, because we've done that, but quickly jot down what would you do to check for understanding from Tina. What would you do? How would you get her learning articulated? I'll pop mine in the chat. If I'm speedy enough, I might pop 3 or 4 before someone else pops something in. How would you get your formative assessment to ensure that you are inclusive of Tina? Yep, observations. Perfect. Thanks, Rinku. Observations is a perfect inclusive check-in. Have a chat. Use your voice verbally. I popped in drawing a diagram on a laptop or computer. She can pop her voice to text over it. She can pop her voice over it. Many ways to ensure that we are being inclusive. And that's the same in regards to then when you're purposely planning. We know that, okay, she's not going to pick up a pen or pencil, but when she's in my student group, I know that I'm going to have a chat with her, and I'll be able to annotate those conversations, date them. And that is part of my formative assessment. And then when she goes with child B, when they do a think, pair, share, she's going to talk to them, and I'm going to make the other partner scribe and present back. So different ways to target and purposely differentiate, knowing your learners. Okay, so in practice, understanding a specific disability, sorry, got my words all mixed up now. There is some documentation there. I'm going to leave that one for today, but just a reminder that as we, and Rinku mentioned observing and chatting, and I was mentioning the use of technology. If you are using that ICT use, the APST 2.6.1, implement teaching strategies for using ICT, there's a direct link there, as well as, of course, our original APSTs that we were targeting for this tutorial. Assistive technology, there's a few links there as well. A reminder that autistic students can succeed academically if appropriate support and awareness is in place. I just want to really stress that if you've had a student living with autism, and then the following year or the next class or the next cohort, you have another student with autism, it can look very different. And the purposeful conversations with families, with the student, is really important to figure out what works for them, as well as what supports and support staff and plans are in place around that student. So it is important to note that each person on the autism spectrum will be different. It's important to understand each student's individual needs. However, some strategies can assist. And a reminder that inclusive practice, the brilliant thing about it is when you're targeting a student with a learning need, it's actually good quality teaching and learning for all students. So just remember that. So a few tips there about meeting with the student before the course starts, as well as providing clear, detailed information about the structure of the course or the subject area that you're teaching, as many of you are in secondary. A reminder to be consistent in approach and keep variations and changes to a minimum. If a change, for example, a timetable room, is inevitable, give clear, specific information as far ahead as possible. And that's like it is. It's just good quality teaching, like and learning for all students. A lot of our students get anxiety when you come in and you're like, hey, by the way, actually, I've got this teacher just coming in this morning for an hour, and then we're going to go to assembly or parade. And then actually we've got a guest speaker as well later in the afternoon. Like that throws everybody, throws the whole class. So whether we're talking about students with specific needs and disability, or we're just talking about good quality teaching and learning, this is just a reminder. Particularly with students with autism, clear, unambiguous language, making sure you're very direct. No metaphors or irony. If providing feedback, be very clear and succinct. Be patient, encouraging, supportive, but guide the student back to task if necessary. Present course materials and instructions in a structured way and show how components fit together. That's a really important one. That as well links back to our original first assignment and that theory that we learned. The 8 Aboriginal ways of learning is, it was deconstruction and then bringing it back together. It's really important that you can see all the different parts of the learning task, but then you see the clear end goal as well. Okay. A few more tips here in regards to providing supports in place for our students. Help the student establish their group in knowing like who the students can be working with if they are in group work, being very clear around the person they're working with, set concrete, realistic goals to assist, as well as provide access to support. And as I mentioned, it's all good quality teaching and learning, but it's really important that particularly students with autism and students with learning needs, if they are accessing a support staff regularly, they need to build rapport with that staff member too. So knowing exactly who's coming in on what day helps their schedule, and knowing that they're going to have a little bit of additional help as well. And there's a few more there, and I'll leave those ones and you can. But all little things that can be help an inclusive classroom. Over the head headphones, noise cancelling headphones, whether they're light sensory, all those different things, depending on the needs of the student. This one is from Tomlinson, this video. I'm going to leave this one. It is in our slides, so you can come back to it. I think it's a really important one to watch, particularly if you haven't been doing your 15 hours of module learning at home on your own directed learning. Tomlinson is a great academic literature that could help strongly with your justification for A2. So have a little bit of a watch of that one when you get a chance. Okay, we're going to do a quick refresher of differentiation. And then after that, we're going to have a quick break as we're halfway through, and then we will come back. So a reminder that they're based off Tomlinson. There are 4 types of differentiation. 3 were mentioned in our video. So the product, how students demonstrate and extend what they know, understand, and can do as a result of the unit. There's the process that can be differentiated for and change, the activities through which students take in and make sense of key ideas in the content. Using essential knowledge and skills, the content, so the information, ideas, skills that students will take in or grapple with in order to reach the learning goals, and then the classroom environment, the way the classroom works and feels. So it's as simple as differentiation, classroom environment. Are you going into pairs for their learning? Are they going into group work? How are they going to break off into groups if they are doing that. Classroom environment also involves all our pedagogical models. Are we providing an explicit instruction? Are we including gradual release? Do we have bump it up walls? Do we have learning walls? What's that classroom environment that we are differentiating for? So these next 4 slides just go into it a little bit more. So in regards to content, using reading materials at varying ability, putting text materials onto a tape or a audio, using spelling or vocab lists, presenting ideas through auditory and visuals, using reading buddies, meeting with small groups to reteach an idea. So it's all about what the student needs to learn or how the student will get access to the information. It's the content side of it. The next one is differentiating the process. So the process refers to how the students make sense of the information and ideas and skills. It reflects student learning styles and preferences. So providing varied options at different levels based on difficulty, offering students amounts of teacher or support, student support for a task. So the process, that peer-to-peer scaffolding and teacher scaffolding, giving choice about how they would like to express their understandings, and varying the learning processes depending on how the students work. So in that green box there, it's just giving you a little bit from the theory side of it into the practice. So what does it look like in our practice? So there we go, talking about stations, whether it's inquiry-based or independent, using flexible grouping and regrouping. If you go down a little bit, there's some great ideas in regards to offering manipulatives. So the process of not having to write down. Maybe there's another way that they could show their understanding, whether it's through drawing or you're providing something that they can actually move about. And then also the process of just being able to maybe work in a group at some time, maybe going by themselves. So that process as well. So the product, when we think about differentiating the product, that's the output, curriculum output. So no, they do not have to write the essay if it is not in the rubric of the Australian curriculum. If it is not specifically saying we are looking at handwriting and spelling, then there might not be that component to write it. So just depending on your discipline specific area in what you're teaching, the product of differentiation can be to change whether it's a report, the actual style that they are delivering in. Differentiation in regards to the product can also be providing a challenge or a variety or a choice, and giving students options about how to express required learning. In the orange box there, it's just giving some more examples in regards to practice. And then our last differentiation model there in regards to Tomlinson is the differentiating environment. So considering the way that the environment can look and feel, providing a safe and positive environment, allowing for individual work preferences and managing the learning space. A perfect example of that was in our video about go read a book and sit on the table. He's still doing the learning. Is the quality of learning happening? Yes. However, it's just in a different form. He's sitting on a table. Not always, it's not always going to look like that. Differentiating for the environment can also be about students. Some students we know prefer to work alone and they might like to remove themselves to a quiet corner, whereas others actually prefer an alternative seating and they like to be near the teacher and near the learning wall at all times. Different materials depending on their home settings and cultures, as well as Clear guidelines for independent work. Some students prefer the learning wall, some students prefer a checklist, others with the environment prefer just coming up to you and having a chat and saying, hey, how am I going with this? So learning environment can be quiet, and that might be advantageous for some students, whereas for others, they need to collaborate and they need to talk in order to succeed in their learning. So differentiating, yeah, it requires that purposeful thought as to how the environment is going to be as well. All right, we will jump into a break now. So it's 8:04. Let's come back at 8:10. Have a few minutes to yourself, get a drink, get a cuppa, and come on back and we will finish off. We're going to start looking after we have a little bit of look here in regards to just a bit of a summary in regards to differentiation when we come back. And then we're jumping into a bit of PBL, which is classroom management and positive behavior for learning. So I'll see you at 8:10 very, very shortly. I'm sorry, I'm in my Queensland time. So 6:10 for you guys. Okay, let's jump back in. I'm just going to leave this one here. There is an activity, but I'm just very conscious of our time together. But definitely refer back to this one when you are looking at that particular section in your lesson planning and differentiation. And yeah, picking one or two. Remember, everybody's teaching and learning is different. You've got the theoretical, the professional knowledge there to justify your choices. So it's not a matter of in your lesson planning, or they've put in reciprocal teaching, or they've put in project-based learning. Oh, that's wrong. It doesn't work like that. Pedagogical models, pedagogy, it can all be justified in regards to your purpose and coming back to your learning intention, success criteria, and backing it with your theoretical knowledge. So I'll leave that one there because there's so many that we could delve into tonight. But I'm just mindful that we're finishing up on differentiation and to have a look into the other aspect into depth that goes into your lesson planning, which is the classroom management. Okay, so depending on the state that you're teaching and learning in, this one in particular, I know it's very big in Queensland and in New South Wales. When I worked in Victoria, not so much. There was definitely strategies for classroom management, but there wasn't a particular framework in regards to PBL, is what they've got it called as, which is positive behavior for learning. So I just want to, before we go into classroom management, I really want to highlight that when you're thinking about student engagement and engagement of learners, you want to think of aspects of the Australian curriculum, and in particular, the curriculum content and how you're ensuring, and I come back to Rinku's contribution in the chat about high expectations. Keep your high expectations, bring in your curriculum knowledge, your pedagogy, and your differentiation. That is all encompassed in quality teaching and learning and providing access to the curriculum. So there's another layer that sits on this classroom management, which is positive behavior for learning. And it comes with, and we'll go into it, about positive reinforcement, and it starts to identify students. We'll jump into the next slide. It's really, really important that we keep a very mindful judgment space on students, particularly when we look at data. So positive behavior for learning is an evidence-based framework, and it brings together whole school communities to contribute to developing positive, safe, supportive learning culture. It has to be at a whole school level for this to work. You also need to be very mindful that it does put students into tiers. So the aim of it is to improve social, emotional behavior and academic outcomes. Ideally, what it does is it first highlights the students' needs, or particularly, I guess, what they are displaying within their behavior. So it goes and it looks at like the antecedent, what happened before this behavior, an ABC model, antecedent, behavior, and then a consequence. It really tries to delve into why is this student behaving the way it is, or the way they are, I should say. So within the green, most of your students will sit, and it's the preventative practice. It's for all students. So it's your Your quality teaching and learning. Once you go into and your student is highlighted in the yellow there, that's a targeted group interventions. And it's just for a small amount of students within the school, so 15 to 20%. And then your top tier students, which is your tier 3, as you can see in that pyramid, is intensive individualized intervention. It's very, very rare to get those students into that top tier, but it does happen. And that's when supports are in place. So as we're thinking about positive classroom culture, the majority of your class should be sitting in the green. You know, and it's low level things. Students that have behavior can still sit in the green. So, you know, they've scrunched up their work. Yep, we need to do some reflection as teachers. We need to go, oh, you know what? That student, that was obviously the cognitive load or, you know, the student learning, it was too hard. Did I check for understanding in a different way? So scrunching up their work, throwing it out the window, things like that, low level, they'll still be in the green. Okay. So when we talk about student behavior, we think about as teachers, as the professionals, what is the student's behavior telling me? Are they bored, frustrated, or overwhelmed? What is the student's motivation for behavior? Focus on the behavior, not the student, and teach and model pro-social behavior. And when we talk about that teach and model pro-social behavior, it's really important when you get out on your placements. That's something you should be asking before you're even within the classroom. If you've met with your mentor teacher beforehand, or you've had a meeting with the year level coordinator or your deputy principal, and you're asking, hey, do you have some whole school values? They might show you a matrix of expected behaviors, positive behaviors that we refer to, and they use that positive language all the time. So when we talk about teach and model pro-social behaviors, realistically, it comes at a whole school level, and they will already be embedded within the school, and then you're using that same consistent language. So to be proactive, be effective, classroom behaviors and rules need to be linked to the school-wide expectations. It needs to be something that the students have been a part of. And there needs to be time set in the day, whether you have the year 7 cohort, this or that, where it's explicitly taught. It shouldn't always be taught in a reactive space, like, oh, the students all suddenly became defiant and walked out of the room. And then you're not trying to teach then and there. No, we sit at our tables, we stay in class, we talk to each other for learning. You need to be explicitly teaching some of these managing behaviors when everyone's calm, and an explicit lesson. And that is usually outside your discipline area. It's just a positive behavior for learning lesson. Another proactive approach is building that rapport. Relationship is a foundation. And particularly when you're going out on placement, don't beat yourself up on this. Like, you need to lean on your mentor teacher. You need to lean on the support staff or the leadership staff as well. When you're coming in new, or you're coming in just for a few weeks, sometimes it can take 6 to 8 to 12 months to build rapport with some of our students. It just depends. So know your students, know your learners. Try as best you can with that positive rapport, but sometimes as well, you need to accept that the rapport may take a little bit longer. One that is important when you are setting up your own classroom, the physical space is one that is sometimes underappreciated in regards to thinking about classroom management and positive behavior for learning. Thinking about just the light that comes into the classroom, seating arrangements, being proud, have you displayed their learning? Is it a positive classroom? As well as, is there strong routines that's not going to be setting off anxiety aggression because of the disruption in the class. So visual routines, timetables. And empowering students. So being proactive is by empowering students to make choices. I know I've mentioned this a lot in regards to secondary students. They start to hit a point where they want to make the choices that you can't tell me what to do. Da, da, da. So, well, I'm not telling you, like, let's do this together. What's our choice to ensure? Like, we need to do this today. This is the learning, or this is what we need to get done. Here's a choice. So, choice in space, choice in task, choice in materials, all within a very purposeful, and you still got to have your firm, purposeful learning intention, success criterion, and where the class is headed. But choices are also a really big, particularly with our secondary students. So responding to behavior and managing classroom behavior. The general considerations is obviously sometimes it can be a little bit confronting. Thankfully, when you are out on placement and practicum, you have your mentor teacher there at all times and take their advice and guidance. One important aspect, you have to stay calm. You also need to be aware of what your immediate response is going to be. So as I mentioned, you need to know this before you step into your classroom. Like, what is the process that the school follows? What is your deputy principal, your assistant principal, your leadership staff? What is the expectation? Because you also have a role, it is your role as the teacher to keep everybody safe in the classroom and to keep yourself safe as well. Yeah, remember the importance of prevention. So trying to see if things are bubbling, and if they are, yeah, what are the steps that are going to take? It takes time. Like, this is one that we talk about all the time, managing student behavior and managing inappropriate student behavior. The first thing you need to do as a teacher, you need to be aware of exactly what is allowed and what is not, what is okay, what is definitely not okay. A really good place to start as well when you're starting out, whether it's, yeah, you're on placement or your first job, student code of conduct. That is exactly, the schools have to have a student code of conduct, because when we get into that higher tier, up into that top tier 3, once we start suspending students, we actually need to have documentation as to, well, these were the clear expectations that were required of the student, and the student was aware of that when they enrolled in the school. In the secondary spaces, they usually provided that at the enrollment interview. And if not, it is definitely one. Usually you find them on the school websites. So student code of conduct, and they usually have, yeah, what is like a minor behavior and what is a major behavior, and the differentiation for them. So some strategies there in regards to managing behavior. There's many, many to go from. In regards to positive behavior for learning, it's a preventative measure. So it's about making sure that we are, and as I said before we started discussing PBL, it's about thinking about the curriculum. Like, we're there to deliver the curriculum, and usually, not always, but usually there's something going on in regards to accessing the curriculum. Perhaps the differentiation is not quite fit for that learner, whether it's a social, and remember, Australian curriculum, social aspects, that's still part of the curriculum. So maybe upon reflection, you start a differentiation, you put them in groups. but then you've realized, oh, actually, that student needs a learning development in their social aspect, and they can actually not learn with that other student in the class. So being very purposeful and intentional about how we're sorting our classrooms out, active engagement, positive reinforcement, as simple as if you haven't really worked around positive reinforcement, it's about always pointing out, um, always pointing out the good things that are going on in the classroom and intentionally ignoring the things that may be distracting in the classroom, like the calling out or the moving of the chair. Oh, I really like the way child B is looking at me, looking at the whiteboard, ready to go. Positive reinforcement. I really like the way that student A has grabbed out her laptop, she's logged in, and she's ready to go. She's got the same PowerPoint up as me. Positive reinforcement. I like the way that child X has moved away from the window because there's 50 kids out there screaming as they're walking past. I can see that she's re-engaged in learning. So that positive reinforcement is an students really thrive off consistent and fair consequences. So like I mentioned, the school should have set consequences, and you need to follow those through. It doesn't mean you personally. Sometimes we lean on our leadership or support staff, but the students can pick up very quickly whether it's active supervision is the important one. And when we say active supervision, we're talking about making sure that at all times you're noticing the little things. Is it the look that the other student gave to them? And like you're picking it up and you can go, oh, I know exactly what happened there. And you can reflect on that and then you can make changes accordingly. So there is a range of different resources available. This one is from, let me just jump back. This one is from the Queensland government website, so you can jump on there and have a little look at the PBL framework as well, if that's one that you are interested in. So we're going to have a little watch of a video now. This objective is to outline a number of different evidence-based strategies for managing challenging behaviours. It's one that with pre-service teachers, graduate teachers, beginning teachers, managing behaviour is always on our mind because we want to do so well. We want to just have our classrooms calm. We want them functioning. But the reality is, no matter where you are in your career, there's always going to be something that pops up with a dynamic of a student, and that's okay. So let's have a little watch of this one. I'll pop the video in the chat box. This one, oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, it's just started. I'm not sure if you can hear that one. Probably I've got them all going. Here's the link. I've just popped it in the chat. Have a watch of this one. It is only 8 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll have a little chat about Sue Cowley and her knowledge on behaviours. Okay. Hopefully you have finished watching that one. Um, Interesting one. Once again, I always mention that everything pedagogy wise, it all depends on the scenario, the dynamics of your class, and what's occurring. If there is one thing that you took away from that video, pop it in the chat. I know that they mentioned about just having that neutral tone, as well as coming back. It's not specifically about the child, it's about keeping everybody safe, referring back to a policy of some sort, which we mentioned about the code of conduct. But once again, it's all dependent on the dynamic of the class, as well as the dynamic of the student. Like if they're heightened, you're not going to be like, oh, well, the code of conduct says, you're going to use some of those micro skills and micro strategies that are in a positive classroom climate. So I've just jumped on, I know everyone's busy and you're managing your time. So I've just jumped on our Module 5 learning. I think this is an important one. I don't think in particularly, I just want to bring it up because I want to look at our assessment too in regards to positive learning and classroom management. So if we jump here, I've just got open your samples there. So see, this one is the secondary one. So here in the lesson plan template. And remember, this is just an example. So I'm not saying that this one in particular is of a high distinction or whatnot. It's about, it's just got a few little notes there. So it's just the considerations for classroom management and diversity. And you can see there it says, so thinking about inclusivity, differentiation, and classroom management, it says on the third dot point, so PK, so of course we're keeping students de-identified. PK is on a behavior plan and must sit at the front of the class, be clear with expectations, be positive, fill in behavior notes at the end of the lesson. Okay, so that's what's been placed on the lesson plan. I'm not saying that that's the most detailed one. I'm not saying that it's what you should put into your lesson plan. It's just an example that we've got there on Blackboard. When you go back and have a look at our notes from our workshop, PBL and managing behavior, it says here, management, for example, can include the seating plans, safety considerations, classroom organization, prevention and intervention strategies. So I think a really important one there is if you're putting in, if we have a look, you're thinking about theory. So once again, your lesson plan is based off just a scenario that you have chosen and a class that you have selected to make the lesson plan about. If you start thinking about classroom management, you're also, as you're doing your rationale, a really great reference point is about, if you haven't looked into this, I'd highly recommend, because in that video just then, let me just bring up my slides. In the video then from Sue Cowley, she's talking about, saying the names of students, keeping a calm voice, sending out assistance. When you look at the theory from there, look into either you've got in your module 5 essential skills of classroom management. Also, it can also be known in different states as classroom profiling. Now have a look here. They're the micro skills. So in your rationale, you're talking about, as I'm continuing to deliver the lesson, I'm actively supervising my class and I'm making sure that I am giving clear instructions about the learning as well as clear instructions about the behavior. So there's always learning, behavior. I'm waiting and scanning at the class before I deliver my I do. Before I start my gradual release and introduce a learning intention success criteria, one of my classroom essential skills for classroom management is that I'm waiting and scanning because I have the high expectation that when I do the I do, when I deliver my explicit lesson, that no one is talking over the top of me. So I'll wait and scan. As I'm waiting and scanning, I can see child B is providing me with eye contact. Thank you, child C, for putting your pencil down. So the essential skills, so ESCMs is what they're known. They're actually ordered 1 to 10. You can see that here. Behavior management micro skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They actually are also ordered in preference of high impact. So you're better off starting with your establishing expectations rather than giving choice straight away in regards to behavior, if we're talking about behavior. So if you haven't had a look at this, this is in module 5 from last week, and it is in the topic 3, they're managing challenging behavior. So that's a good one to refer to, particularly you might not mention it, as I said, you might not put it in the notes here under your classroom management in the lesson plan, but you can talk about it in your rationale, in your listening. All right. I would just go into one scenario before I check if there's any questions or anything that you want to touch base before we meet on Thursday. So let's not do this one. I want to do a high school one because I know many of you are in our secondary space. All right, here we go. Let's do one scenario and discuss a classroom, what you might do as your classroom management behavior. So Kelly is in year 8. Woohoo! Year 8's always, I find our year 7s are always beady-eyed and ready to learn, and then our year 8s have got a little bit of oomph about them. Okay, so Kelly is in year 8 and she can be quite argumentative with teachers, especially if she feels she's been backed into a corner. Kelly refuses to complete her worksheet. She's calling out to others, encouraging them to join in, refusing to do the work. From across the room, the teacher tries to talk to Kelly about doing her work. Kelly then starts yelling at the teacher, calling them names and screaming. The teacher's response is to tell Kelly that if she continues to yell at her, she will be given lunchtime detention. Kelly continues to yell. Naturally. What are some strategies you could have tried in each part of the behavior? Okay, so this is a really important part. It's part of Sue Kelly. She mentioned you've got your primary behavior, so your first initial behavior, and then you got your secondary behavior. So right now you're thinking, when we asked the scenario here about what are some strategies you could have tried in each part of the behavior. So let's look at the primary behavior. So the first part of the behavior here. So Kelly refuses to complete her worksheet. And this links back to what I was talking about in regards to understanding access to curriculum versus behavior and what's going on there. So even though there's that background knowledge about Kelly can be quite argumentative to teachers, especially if she feels she's been backed into a corner. So you've already got a bit of background there. Okay, so Kelly refuses to complete her worksheet. What are some ESCMs? What's some essential skills of classroom management? I'll bring them back up. What's something that we could try pretty much straight away? Do it, Rinku. Blame the policy. Kelly, you got to do your learning because you're at school. I love it. Come back to code of conduct. Kelly, you know what? You're not doing your learning. I love that. Thanks, Rinku. It's definitely about, so Kelly is not completing her worksheet. So if we're thinking about, okay, we've already set up the lesson. I'm looking at the ESCMs. We've already said, guys, here's the learning intention success criteria. Today, I really love you to have a go at this learning, whatever was on the worksheet. Okay, I'm going to go down with Kelly because we know that she doesn't like to be backed into a corner. This one here, descriptive encouraging, really a really, really good one. So describe, it says here to encourage students to become more aware of their competence by describing what you see from them. So Kelly's refusing to complete the worksheet. Hey, Kelly, I can see she's refusing. She's refusing to complete the worksheet. But hey, Kelly, I can see you've already got your pencil out ready to go. And you're just going proximity. Use yourself. Proximity. Go in, classroom management, quietly. You don't want to shame her in front of everyone. I can see you've already got your pencil out. Hey, do you want me to read the first question for you? Or, hey, how about I help you with the first thing on the worksheet? And then you can try the next. Would you like to try the next one by yourself? Or would you like me to partner you up with someone? Straight away, you can see from that scenario, here, Kelly refused to complete her worksheet. There's a reason for it. She's not just not doing it because she doesn't like Miss Kate or whatever it may be. There's a reason. It's usually access to curriculum. So then the next part, she's calling out to others, encouraging them to join in and refuse to do their work. Go use your proximity again. Hey, Kelly, I can see you calling out to your friend across the way. Do you want to go sit with Rihanna, whoever a friend is? Do you want to go sit and do the learning with her? And you're whispering this. You're not shaming her in front of everyone. Anyway, so there is many classroom strategies there that you utilize. So hey, there's a bit in module 5 to really help you. It won't be in particularly, like I mentioned, it won't go particularly into your lesson planning, but it is very imperative that you do mention it into a depth into your rationale. Okay. Is there any questions? And it's just mentioning about placement as well. Just a reminder that Robin, our unit assessor, a while back sent through the placement like all the framework and everything and the link to that. So if you have any questions about that, that's got pretty much everything there. We will meet on Thursday. So A2 is assessment 2 is due on Friday. So assessment, at the tutorial, bring hopefully your completed lesson plans. We'll provide each other with some feedback. But if there's no questions, once again, I just want to reiterate, if you haven't attended those workshops, you really need to. You're missing out on some crucial content in regards to assessment 2. Thank you guys again for your contributions in the chat. If there is no questions, I will see you Thursday. Thank you again for your flexibility with coming in on the Monday. See you, Ryan. Thank you. All the best with finishing off your assessment 2. Check out the workshop recording. Hey, Rinku, do you want to jump on the mic? Feel free to.
Yeah, I wanted to say, no, actually, I wanted to ask
Yeah.
that
It's not necessary to be aligned with NSW curriculum, isn't it? Like I have chosen something from Australian curriculum, neither from WI. So should
Yeah.
be fine, no?
Yeah, that's completely fine. Yeah, it doesn't have to be specific to WA curriculum. You can do Australian curriculum. Yep, as long as you've got like it's just about that you've got the content in the lesson plan, but whatever one you want to use, we will be able to mark accordingly. Yeah.
Sure. Also, while like filming the video, we are not filming ourselves. It's about filming the presentation that we have done, yeah?
Yes, yes. So part of the requirements is I'll just bring up the Blackboard. Part of the requirements is when you're doing your presentation, um, you will have some uh yeah, here. So see here in part B, if you scroll down to the key requirements, you'll need to include some visuals to assist in your voiceover, in your rationale. But that is not, that doesn't have, that's not your face. It's about you talking and bringing up, if you're talking about a theory, you might bring up the model, the theoretical model, and be pointing to that with your on-screen pointer or whatever and saying, here Bloom's taxonomy this, and you might bring up a photo. Definitely watch the other three
Yeah, I had a
presentation.
look at them, all
Yeah,
of them.
yeah. So
That's great.
you don't need to record your face. We just need
Yeah,
your actual voice. Yeah.
yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
just start. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all good. Thanks for coming in tonight, Rinku. All right. Any other questions there? All right. I will see you all next, not next, sorry, this Thursday. See you this Thursday at 5, and that's our last one. A reminder to bring along your completed lesson plans.